bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So I just told all of the Thai people that I was going to be talking about faith, and that it's something that I don't really need to say much about in Thai, because faith is something which most Thai people just grew up with. It's like a fish in water. You know, you don't need to tell a fish much about water because they live in it all the time. But for us, growing up in the West, growing up in countries where Buddhism was not the primary religion, it's something that we have to learn about, something we have to train in. And it's often hard because even the word faith in English is a concept which is all mixed up with baggage from other religions, from other concepts. If we grew up in a non-Buddhist family, which most of us did, faith may have been applied in a way just to get us to shut up and not ask questions, or to not look critically at things, just have faith, this kind of thing. So a lot of us have a broken relationship with faith. But I thought it would be useful to talk about this subject because quite a number of us are on pilgrimage. Thank you. So there's a group of about 28 lay people, and myself and Ajahn from Seattle. We're starting a monastery called Clear Mountain Monastery, and we don't yet have an actual monastery place, but have a growing group of people in Seattle and the surrounding area who are very interested in learning more about the Dhamma and practicing Dhamma. And we've decided to come on this about a week in Thailand and then a week in Bodh Gaya pilgrimage, basically to where our roots are, our Buddhist roots, our monastic roots, to learn about the tradition and to really soak in the beautiful aspects of faith, the beautiful aspects of a Buddhist culture, which we just don't see. In the West, we've got these little pockets of Buddhism, these little bubbles. These monasteries are like little bubbles of belief, and they're beautiful for what they are, but then you leave the bubble and nobody knows what you're talking about, and nobody knows why you're wearing these robes, and it's just a weird thing for many people. But here, yeah, monks are respected, you know, and it makes sense, and coming to a monastery is a very normal thing. So we're on pilgrimage. We've crossed the Pacific Ocean, spent thousands of dollars to fly in planes and buses to vans to get here. And that's a lot of movement. But I think one useful way to conceive of pilgrimage for all of us, those who've been traveling from America, or those who are online, or those who are just in this monastery, you can think of pilgrimage actually as just a profound way of going nowhere, actually. So pilgrimage, what we're trying to find, what we're looking for on pilgrimage, whether it's to Thailand or to India or to our local monastery or to the meditation hall or to our meditation cushion or just in the present moment, is basically a place of rest. And we want to find that, and the only place we can find that is in the present moment. So how do we balance these two things of intensely searching, but also acknowledging and realizing that what we're searching for can only be found right here in this present moment, right now, within our own bodies and minds. And this is where faith and growing in faith, or let's use the Pali term saddha, that's where saddha or confidence or trust, this is where this quality can grow and flower and really provide a cool resting place, not just a place to sit and grit our teeth and bear it, but it can be a beautiful place. It can provide a coolness for the heart when we allow this quality of saddha to grow. So when we come to meditate right now, whether we're listening to a talk or giving a talk or meditating, in meditation, there are basically just two things that we have to do. In daily life, in Buddhist practice, there are basically just two things that we have to do, and that is to know. So knowing, bringing awareness to the present moment, right here and right now. That's the goal, and it's apparent here and now. That's the first thing, just knowing. And the second thing is letting go. So knowing and letting go, that's the heart of meditation. And really, it's also the heart of faith, of saddha. At the most basic level, this saddha is having the faith that it is possible to know, that knowing or being the puru, this knowing capacity, we can tap into that. Oftentimes when you hear senior monks, Ajahn Sumedho, or really any of our Kruba Ajahns talk about knowing, it can sometimes seem a bit esoteric. Like, what are they talking about? It almost seems like a magical way of thinking, just being the knowing or being the knower. What are they talking about? It can seem oftentimes just too profound on a whole another level that we can't actually tap into. But what the faith is, on one level, in relationship to this knowing, is that it is an aspect of consciousness, of vijnana, or of chitta, or of the mind, that can just know. Really, that is the heart of consciousness. That's all consciousness does, is just knowing. But we're not always able to stay with that. So we nurture this faith that this knowing can blossom, and it does get more and more expansive. And the second aspect of faith is summarized in a really beautiful sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Twos, where the Buddha says, it is possible to abandon unwholesome states. If it were not possible to abandon unwholesome states, I wouldn't say monks, practitioners abandon unwholesome states. But because it is possible to abandon unwholesome states, I say, do it, abandon unwholesome states. And similarly, it is possible to cultivate, to develop, to bhavana wholesome states. If it weren't possible, I wouldn't say to do it. But because it is possible, the Buddha says, do it. So that's the second level of faith. And you might say, well, yeah, of course, but not really, of course. If we really were able to live that truth or have that faith every moment, then nothing will be a problem. Because as soon as a problem arises, then you'd have the faith, the belief, it is possible to let go of this problem. And then you would just work at it. And so that's the second aspect of faith. A friend of mine, he's a Zen monk, and Zen, they've got these kind of pithy ways of talking about, and almost paradoxical ways of talking about the path and about things. Pretty much everything, it's always a paradox or in Zen. But he was talking about faith, and he was saying that faith is skill in doubt. Yeah. So faith is learning how to doubt. So faith is an education. We're learning how to doubt intelligently. And as Westerners, we need to get our doubt under control. So doubt, or vicikiccha, is the fifth of the 5 hindrances. And it's one which everybody deals with it to some extent, but I think people who grew up in a culture which fetishizes and praises and just exalts the thinking mind and really the skeptical mind to such an extent, we think that doubt is the path. And if we're good at doubt, then it can be the path. That's what the Buddha said to the Kalamas. You know, you're skeptical of those things which are deserving of skepticism. But when we come to this path, we are not yet good at doubting. We don't know what to doubt. We just follow along with whatever our culture or our teachers or whatever philosophers we read or our own biases. We just think, oh yeah, in this teacher or this book or whatever, or my own thoughts are saying, don't trust this. And maybe you're right and maybe you're wrong, but learning how to doubt intelligently. In the Dhammapada, there are a number of verses, I believe around 316 to 319, something like that, where the Buddha says that people suffer because you fear those things which shouldn't be feared, and you have shame about those things which you shouldn't be ashamed about, and you doubt those things which you shouldn't have doubt about. So the Buddha is acknowledging that there are things to fear, there are things to be ashamed about, and there are things to doubt about. But we need to learn and practice and look at our own hearts. And it's not about just following some scripture or following what some teacher says, but about looking at the results in our own heart. That's a big part of it, but that's not the whole of it. And that's why we've come all the way to Thailand. In my experience, and the experience of many people, there's what you can call this like faith knock-on effect. So for many Westerners, we started being interested in Buddhism because we go to a meditation retreat. And oftentimes a meditation retreat which totally takes Buddhism out of the picture. So you go to a Goenka retreat, and he's a genius at basically saying this is not Buddhism. And he's right on a certain level. We're just paying attention to the breath at the tip of the nose, just scanning the body. There's nothing Buddhist about that. And that's a great place to start for people who don't have a Buddhist base. But then you start doing that and you try to live, just knowing the breath at the tip of the nose, scanning the body. And at some point, you might say, oh yeah, but is there more? And then you start listening, and it turns out that Goenka or these other teachers actually they're teaching Satipatthana. Okay, they're teaching a sutta. They're teaching something which is from this thing called the Pali Canon. So then you start reading the Pali Canon, not just the Satipatthana Sutta, but the suttas are big. There are so many of them. And you start reading one, and then you have a teacher or a friend who says, oh yeah, if you're interested in speech, here are a bunch of discourses where the Buddha talks about speech. And then you say, it's this knock-on. So I have faith in what the Buddha said about meditation. And then, oh yeah, I'm curious, what does he say about speech? Or what does he say about livelihood? Yeah, and these are fascinating things which you don't necessarily get from just watching the breath. So, okay, I'm starting to have faith in the suttas, but not all the suttas. And then you hear a teacher talking about the suttas. Like for people who know Thai and maybe know a little bit of Pali, for the talk that Ajahn gave this morning, or the teachings that Lompo Cha or any of the teachers in the Thai forest tradition give, they are so totally steeped in the Pali tradition. They are teaching the word of the Buddha verbatim at times. They pull words out. Just this morning, Ajahn talked about sati, or mindfulness. He talked about upekkha, metta, karuna, mudita. He was constantly referring back to these concepts, which you see and you find in the Pali Canon, but which are only fleshed out to a certain degree. You read the Pali Canon, and you can get a lot of sustenance from reading them. But when you have teachers who've lived them since the time they were teenagers and before, and who not only know the words, but have lived them and actually penetrated to the truth of them, then we can take that and learn from them. They're a living example. They're the living Tipitaka in many ways. So the faith it knocks on, and we can bring it more and more into our hearts, because that's where we're going on pilgrimage, and that's where we're at on pilgrimage. That's where faith has to start, and that's where faith is going to end. Faith is a power. There's a beautiful tradition, which we might see on our pilgrimage here in Thailand. In forest monasteries, you'll notice the color of our robes. They are, in each Buddhist country, the colors of the robe are originally related to the natural flora and fauna of the wildlife, or the plants of that country. So in Tibet, they've got these purplish robes because it's juniper berry. And here in Thailand, as forest monks, our robes are dyed from jackfruit dye. So basically the process of getting natural dye from jackfruit is you take these different sections of jackfruit heartwood, and you chop to get these chips of jackfruit from these sections, maybe a foot or two wide. And then you boil those down, and you boil it, and you keep boiling and keep boiling. You boil it overnight. Sometimes you boil it for 48 hours to get all of the essence, all of the color out of these jackfruit heartwood chips. And then you've got this concentrated solution which you can dye white cloth with. And I think it's a beautiful simile for the practice in general. It can be a beautiful simile for faith, but it can also be a beautiful simile specifically for the meditation object, Buddho. So this can be a theme for people who are open to it. This meditation word, Buddho, is something which is taught by all of the teachers that we'll visit. Ajahn Suchat, Ajahn Jayasaro, Ajahn Chah, Longta Mahabua. We won't meet him, he's passed away. Ompu Man, all of these great teachers, they all taught this meditation word, Buddho. And what that is, if you're open to it, again, hopefully what we can do on pilgrimage is meet with the extremities of what we're comfortable with. We are coming to a foreign country, eating food we're not used to, living in a temperature we're not used to. We're in the boundaries of our comfortable level. We're at the peripheries of what we can stand, what we can be patient with. So if people are open to it, Buddho, it's not magic. It doesn't have to be religious. If you're not ready to take on a 2-syllable word, you can use any meditation word you want. But this Buddho is saturated. It is filled with lots of meaning already, and you can fill it even more with more meaning. So if you can take this meditation word, Buddho, using it with every in-breath, Bud, and every out-breath, To, Bud, To, Put, To, or even without the breath, just knowing, Bud, To, or listening, Bud, To, and seeing what comes up. And everything we're taking on. This morning, we asked a question of Ajahn Anan, what's the most important aspect most important skillful qualities that we can bring to the practice and a spiritual life? And Ajahn Anan said, metta, and knowing the 3 characteristics of impermanence, non-satisfactoriness, and not self, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And this word, Buddho, can be all of that. So all of these beautiful mental qualities, which the Buddha praised, every aspect of the Eightfold Path, every aspect of the 37 wings to awakening, every aspect of right effort, of right speech, they're like individual foot-long sections of this heartwood. And we can boil them down, concentrate them, and epitomize them in this 2-syllable word, Buddho. So when we recite Buddho, it's a symbol for all of these good qualities. It's a symbol for metta. It's a symbol for patience. When we need patience, when we're starting to complain and say, it's too hot, or this guy's talking too long, or I don't like the food, or I'm hungry, or whatever it is, use the Buddha mantra to be patience. Use the Buddha mantra to tap back into that essence of faith, which sees clearly, knows clearly, oh, this is just complaining, or this is just dislike. You can know that, and then to the extent that it's not helpful, you can use that Buddha mantra to abandon it, to let it go, to have the faith that it is possible to let go, and that would be a good thing. Just not having to hold on to it and be obsessed with and just follow after our own cultural and personal conditioning. So with metta, this word Buddha can be the essence of that. Every time judgments come up about the other people in our group, we're traveling in 5 different cars with strangers who we don't know, and humans smell, and we talk in ways that other people aren't used to, and there are all sorts of sense impingements that we're not used to. So Buddha, knowing that, and yeah, this is just a smell, this is just a sound, and we can let it go. And then every step, every moment can be a moment of pilgrimage, a moment of faith, a moment of practice, and we can let go of all those things which furrow our brow, furrow our openness and receptiveness to the Dhamma. And this can be a whole path of opening and just having patience. If we can't let go, then Buddha, just knowing that. So yeah, I hope everyone can take this to heart and really use this Buddha mantra for all of the pilgrims through the whole of our day, every day of our pilgrimage, or whatever your meditation object is, using that and remembering to come back to it and having the faith in that, whatever it is. And then from this seed kernel of faith, this seed kernel in the teachings of the Buddha, in the meditation, in the teachers, then that can blossom in all these things which we're not familiar with. Talk about bodhisattvas, talk about other realms, about dragons or nagas or devas and things that we're not familiar with. Maybe there's something there, or maybe there's not. And just having the heart to be open to that, and maybe it can help our practice. So all in the English there, and maybe just sarup, ให้คนไทยฟัง, just summarize a little bit in Thai.